Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
I'm saying, now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and true. Come roll with.
Hello, nerds. Nerds for Yang. Oh my God, people. What happened? Oh, Iowa screwed us. I was going to use a different word, but we won't say what Iowa did to us, but Iowa definitely effed us badly. Let's just be honest, man. That was not the outcome we were hoping for. Sorry, I'm in a city right now, and there's a lot of beeping in the background. But where are you guys at? We've got 37, 39 concurrents. Where's everybody joining us from? Oakland. ZZ Topic. I am very close to Oakland right now. Well, we've got Germany. Whoops. I don't like, someone says, I guess Iowa don't like Asians. We got Seattle. We got Germany. We got south of Houston. NJ, LA, South Jersey, Minnesota, Silicon Valley. You're in the city. Cool. Oh, Zizi, you recognize the background. Yes, I am. All right. So I did not, unfortunately, Jay, I did not see the town hall. I have been slammed at work and traveling, but I did want to discuss the outcome. Oh, we got West Virginia, by the way. Hello, West Virginia. Hello, Florida. All right, nerds. Thank you for checking in. I'm a little bit jet lagged, to be honest. Plus, I'm a little freaking depressed from Iowa. All right, first things first, let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the results. Because luckily, we at least have results now. All right, here it is. This is as of 9:05 Eastern. I think the most important thing to focus on is the first vote. As a reminder, Iowa has that weird ass policy where you have the first vote, and then if you don't have 15%, you're not considered viable, and all those less than 15% supporters have to pick a new place. So the final vote, one thing I will say is that what you hear reported is a 1% number for Yang in Iowa, which I think is not really representative of the support that he had in Iowa. Because if you look at the first vote, he had 5.1%. But obviously in the precincts where he had less than 15, those supporters had to basically disband and pick a second candidate. And that's why you see, where did the pickup go? Looks like a lot of people went to Warren and some people went to Buttigieg. When you look at the difference between first vote and second vote percentage, you see Buttigieg picks up some, Sanders picks up a little bit, and Warren a little bit. Well, it's interesting. Biden actually had a smaller percentage in the final vote than the first vote. At any rate, so if you had to put lipstick on this thing, you could tell yourself that in the first vote we got 5%, which is way better than the 1% people are reporting. It is interesting that there must have been some precincts where we were over 15, which is why this is not a 0. And that's why we did get, 21 delegates, which is better than nothing, but is certainly not exactly what we were predicting. As you will recall, some of you may recall, I made some predictions on Twitter. Oh, Harkins Aquatics asks me, are you in SF? Well, for my own safety. I think the live stream etiquette is that you are not supposed to indicate where you are, but that is the background behind me. At any rate, let's look at what we actually predicted. Let's keep it real. Here we go. Tom, who thought he was so smart with all his data and intuition. What did I predict? I predicted that Bernie would be number 1. I got that right because Bernie did get most of the votes in the first round of voting. But then I actually predicted that Biden would be number 2. And my thinking was, there's a lot of older folks that go to caucuses. He's a safe choice. He'd been doing pretty well in the national polls. And I thought he would have outperformed his Iowa poll numbers. Warren, I predicted, would be number 3, which I guess I got right because she was number 3. But I basically got number 2 and 4 mixed up because I said Buttigieg would be number 4. And as we know, he came in second. I know the Buttigieg supporters will say he came in first because after the second vote, I think he did come in first. But we said in this prediction that this is focusing on the first round results here, first round. And then I got it wrong again for number 5. I thought Yang would edge out Klobuchar. And then I had Gabbard Steyer. No. Wow, Gabbard didn't get jack. Well, she got 0.2%. It was actually after Klobuchar, it was Yang Steyer. So yeah, I'm going to have to give myself I don't know, maybe a C grade on my predictions. I mean, I got the Bernie one right. I got the Warren one right. That's it. So maybe C minus. But as you will recall, I basically asked people, hey, what's your prediction? Whoever gets the right order and closest will be invited on the Nerds for Yang show. So what's interesting is let's take a look at what other people predicted because we all got it wrong badly. So let's see here. So Wise Woman 39 was saying, hey, come on, Tom. Why would you say Yang is 5th? Well, turns out I was being generous. Then Linsight had Bernie number 1. That's correct. But then had Warren number 2. Incorrect. Yang number 3. Incorrect. And Buttigieg number 4. Incorrect. Although to Linsight's credit, she had Biden doing pretty badly, which he did. So if she had swapped Yang and she would have to swap Buttigieg and Warren and then Yang and Biden, and then she would have been closer. Yeah, no, Linsight, I mean, I'll give her credit for having Biden performing badly. And then you've got Ross Varner. Now, Ross comes in pretty close because at least he has Pete at number 2. So he has a right order for the top 2. And then he's optimistic. He has Yang 3rd. But then he's got Warren. Oh, he's got pretty good. Ross is pretty good because he had Biden doing really badly. He had underestimated Klobuchar, clearly. But right now, I would say good old Ross is pretty close. You got the lesbians for Yang. What did the lesbians think? They thought Bernie, correct, but they have Warren, Yang, Biden. Wow, they had Buttigieg way down. And in fact, Buttigieg was number 2. Yeah, a lot of us, I think, were surprised by Buttigieg. Bernie, Biden, number 2. Yeah. So as you can see, I don't think very many people had Buttigieg number 2, maybe just a Ross character. So I wonder, let's go back up to Ross. Ross Varner. Ross, are you out there? Oh, look at this. Ross is in the live stream. Ross, I'm going to send you a link. I need you to click on that link if you want to join the show and just chat with us for 5 or 10 minutes. This will be the first time I've done a sort of guest who's in the chat room. Just come on down. So Ross, if you, I'm going to send you that link. If you click on the link, hopefully it'll bring you here. Oh shit! Hold on. Oh, ho, ho, ho.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Nerds for Yang.
Nerds for Yang.
I made it.
Ross, welcome to the show, my brother.
How's it going?
I'm I've had better weeks. I'll be honest.
Yeah, you and me both.
So you are joining us from the great state of Texas. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I have to take my hat off to you. No one else in that Twitter stream had predicted a strong. I work with. Do you know Jeremiah?
I do. Yeah. That's my buddy.
So no one else had predicted Mayor Pete coming in strong in that thread, but you did. What did you see that the rest of us didn't?
I don't know. His poll numbers have been going up, and I just felt like something about Iowa was gonna swing his direction. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was a guess. I'm not happy that I was right.
Yeah, when you were
way off on Yang.
When you were watching that night unfold, I mean, what was it like for you? Because like initially they didn't really have any numbers, and then people were already giving speeches. Like, well, were you following it?
Yeah, I watched till about maybe almost midnight before I gave up and realized they weren't ever going to have any information for us. It was disappointing. You know, I was excited. I thought we were going to have a really good showing. They were going through the caucus sites, and some of them had pretty decent sized crowds for Yang.
Yeah.
And then we get nothing. And then they trickle in with this weird 62% the next day.
Yeah.
And none of it has been good news.
It was tough.
But 5% across the state isn't too terrible.
It's not terrible. I mean, one interesting thing is that it shows that those polls that a lot of us had been thinking were massively undercounting.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't that terrible because they had them around 3 to 5 in Iowa.
I think they even had Klobuchar ticking up.
Exactly. And, you know, the other thing that it really kind of showed is that people might be searching for him on Google, and they might be searching for him on YouTube, and they may be following him on Twitter, but a lot of those people did not caucus,
Nope.
you know?
Nope.
And I now there is a little bit of hope in that you could convince yourself that, you know what, everybody knows that caucusing is like a multi-hour commitment. It's not like you go out during your lunch hour, you know, put your ballot through and, you know, head on out. So maybe as we go into just normal primaries, we will perform better because we've got just sort of lighter commitment voters, let's say,
Right.
you know, because the
Yeah.
caucus goers got to be pretty hardcore. But on the other hand, I mean, I think a lot of us thought the Yang Gang was hardcore, and we are. I mean, we know a
That's
lot of
exactly
people
right.
volunteered and drove across the country to go to Iowa, but the Iowans, you know, just were not coming through as strong as we thought they would.
Yeah, I thought we would show up big in Iowa because I thought the Yang Gang is so committed.
Yes,
we poll as the most committed voter base.
totally.
I thought they'd be there in force, and I mean, we had an okay showing, but not as big as I would have thought.
And it could be that the Yang Gang sort of across is strong and in force, but obviously we couldn't participate in the Iowa caucuses.
Nope.
You know, we could canvass.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm curious. What before we go on to discuss New Hampshire, I want to show you something that's just was such a buzzkill for me. So you know, Council Bluffs is the first precinct in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And this was at 6:01. They were saying, hey, here's the delegates for precinct 20 in Council Bluffs. And we got 2, the same amount as Warren and Sanders. Although I will say Council Bluffs did seem to show that Buttigieg would be strong.
Probably won a coin toss.
Yeah, right. And so I was like, oh, dude, this is fantastic. This is like Dixville Notch or whatever in New Hampshire, you know, the first one coming in. But yeah, now obviously, you know, we look at the results. Let's just look at them again. We have here, I mean, this is I will give credit to what do you think of the debate between Sanders and Buttigieg saying who won? Do you know, if you look at the first vote, it's pretty clear that Sanders had more voters.
Yeah.
But then after the less than 15% are forced to redistribute, then you see the percentage. Actually, Sanders is, oh, wow, this must have updated. So I guess Sanders for sure won because he's more in the first and the final.
Well,
Wow.
he won the popular, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and then, but somehow Buttigieg got a higher percentage of delegates. That's
I guess
weird.
his base was a little more spread out.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
So who
it
do
looks to me like he probably pulled a lot of Biden supporters,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, probably a lot of Yang supporters because you know, it's almost 7,000 Yang supporters dropped off after the first round, which blows my mind. That is the last thing that I expected.
Yeah. Oh, what were you expecting the Yang supporters to do?
I thought maybe Klobuchar or Tulsi. I thought Tulsi would have a bigger showing.
Yeah,
Maybe
Tulsi just had nothing.
Steyer too. I thought maybe he would be unviable in a lot of areas, and maybe people would come over to us. But it looks like he dispersed to everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, when you have 5%, you need a lot of people to change their minds.
Yeah,
to get you over, right?
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, let's talk about Biden. I mean, like I like the guy. I never thought he was a strong candidate, but I didn't think he would get his ass kicked like he did.
not in Iowa,
right?
No, but yeah, It's not a good look for him.
I
He's
mean,
kind of running his whole thing on being the electable candidate.
yeah, dude
I
got his
don't know.
ass kicked.
Yeah.
Which also screws us doubly. Like Iowa was such a shit cocktail for us because our candidate did very poorly, and
Yep.
then the guy, what I think is our plan B, was going to be VP for Biden. That
Yep.
mofo, that train ain't going to the White House.
No. And I don't think Bernie's picking Yang as a VP. Warren maybe. Pete, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
I still
think
think
Pete would have. I think. Yeah, I think. Did you say he would pick Hillary?
I think he'll pick Hillary. I'm calling.
No, you crazy. Oh my God, Ross. I don't think you're gonna win that bet.
Well,
I don't think you're gonna
hope I don't.
But God, that would be fun. If Buttigieg got the nomination and he picked Hillary as the VP, dude, you will be like the Nostradamus of all politics. You'll be like on Meet the Press.
I hope I'm wrong. I don't really think that, but it'd be shocking.
Yeah. So what do you think? I'm thinking if Biden has a really hard showing in New Hampshire, I mean, if he came in like 4th in New Hampshire, I wonder if he would just call it quits.
He might. I mean, at that point, what's he going for?
Well, he would. I mean, his supporters would argue that his strength is with the African American vote. So South Carolina would be the Biden firewall. Now, if he lost in South Carolina, then it's like, dude, don't embarrass yourself anymore.
But did you see that poll? I think it was a Morning Consult poll of the 4 early voting states that had Tom Steyer at 19%.
Oh shoot! No,
yeah.
I didn't.
So that to me, because he's still polling really low in New Hampshire, and obviously he's not doing great in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
So is he just really strong in South Carolina and Nevada?
Good old, yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. So
if he's at 19%. That's the only poll I've seen him that high, but he's been ticking up in South Carolina and Nevada for a while.
Yeah,
huge boost after the 2-month polling desert.
Yeah. That would be interesting. I have a theory that I'll run by you since you have such predictive powers. Well, so here's my theory. My theory is that Biden is pretty much toast. Yep. He was looking kind of shaky, like almost literally shaky on the trail. He really got his ass kicked in Iowa. It's very possible that you've got now Bernie and Warren, they're neighboring states, Vermont and Massachusetts. So they should do well in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And Mayor Pete's got momentum. So that's your top 3 there. So if Biden comes in 4th,
yeah.
And then let's say he has number 2 or lower showing in South Carolina. Let's say he's gone. Where do the moderates go? Do they go to Mayor Pete? Do they go to Klobuchar? Or do they go to Bloomberg?
I don't even like to think about Bloomberg. I forget he's in the race sometimes, even though he's on every television show I watch. I don't know. I don't know what they do. I think Pete would be a reasonable assumption. And I think Klobuchar, maybe they split between them, but Bloomberg is a total wild card. I have no idea.
It will be very interesting. I don't know. What's your view on Pete? Are you? I mean, I used to be a little bit dismissive of him. I still don't find him super authentic. Did you watch his speech in Iowa at all?
I watched I watched the whole thing.
And with the crowd chanting and all that choreographed kind of crowd involvement, it just seemed like
he lined up all 6 of his black supporters behind him. And I saw one of them tweet out that she was the girl on the far right and that his campaign staff basically forced her away from her friends to stand behind him front and center on camera. And
Oh my God.
just so awkward. I don't know. I think he's a guy who has been dreaming about being president his entire life.
Yeah.
And the very first opportunity that he had, he took it, and now he's running, and he's got all the big money backing. I think he joined the military to pad his presidential resume. I don't think anything about the guy is authentic. And that's my opinion. I mean, I've never met him. I don't know. That's just the sense that I get.
I think a lot of people get that sense. I think a lot of people get that sense that he's it's a little bit like that rally that where he was giving that speech. It was like the remember the Truman Show where they had like all fake people and everything super scripted, and those chants like, the chants
they were very planned,
right? Like a terrible high school pep rally.
Yes,
it was cringy.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure the Mayor Pete supporters would be like, well, you guys got 5% in the first thing and only ended up with 1%. So I know, I feel you, Mayor Pete supporters. I will grant you that. You kicked our ass. And you delivered, and so respect to the outcome, but I'm still not really vibing the candidate. And I wonder, like, would America really elect like a 30-something-year-old mayor for president? I mean, he looks really young.
He does. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, up against Donald Trump, I thought there was going to be a huge showing from the Democrats in Iowa. I thought they were going to come out in force to pick the candidate, and it was about the same as the last time around. So I don't know. Maybe they're uninspired, or maybe there seems like there's a lot of people undecided still. Maybe any Democrat would beat Trump. Maybe Trump would beat almost any Democrat. I have no idea at this point. I thought I knew. I thought Yang was going to skyrocket months ago. And it never happened. I don't know what wins people over anymore. I don't know.
The other thing was you raised a point about turnout. That was pretty weak ass turnout. It was not like 2008 turnout. And I thought, wow, the Democratic Party is so fired up and pissed off about the current president. And somehow, like, I don't know, like maybe we could convince ourselves that they don't care which nominee, they're just going to vote for any of them. Whoever gets the nomination, they're just vote blue people. It's a little concerning. Like maybe Trump is the biggest winner from Iowa.
I mean,
right?
With the whole disaster and the way that it made the whole Democratic Party look, it's definitely ammunition for Trump to use against them. And he will.
I mean,
he already has.
If you're Trump, you're having a great freaking week.
Yep.
Number one, your buddies in the Senate acquitted you.
Yep.
Although, respect to Romney. Did you see Romney's speech?
I didn't see the speech, but I did see that he voted.
Later on, you should watch his speech. It was legit. It was legit. So, at any rate, he was acquitted by the Senate. His opponent party had a complete clown show caucus execution.
Yep.
Just looked like amateur hour, JV. Yep. Freaking terrible.
It was as bad as it could be.
His primary adversary, or the one that he tried to bribe Ukraine to get info on, imploded on his own. Right? So it's like, yo, Donald, you don't need to ask Russia or Ukraine or China for help. Biden is not your problem. Just let Biden be Biden and you will fucking win. Sorry, excuse me. You will win. And then he wins it, and then Trump probably is winning again because the the candidate of momentum is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, that half the Democratic Party thinks is kind of a phony.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a good
He's under
week to
fire.
be Donald J. Trump.
It is a very good week to be Donald Trump. I never would have thought I'd say that, but
so gross.
He
He
may
might-
be ticking up from this.
It's so like if he gets reelected, God help us, because he will know, like, number one, he's going to be like, hey, I got completely exonerated last time.
Yep.
I'm going to do whatever the heck. He loves to talk about Article 2, about how the executive branch has unlimited power and all this stuff. He's not going to have to worry about reelection in his second term, obviously.
Yep.
And all of the people he had around him in the first term, like General John Kelly, General Mattis, Rex Tillerson, Gary Cohn, like all the wise men that people were like, don't worry, he's crazy, but he's surrounding himself by these wise. They're all gone.
All of them.
All of them are gone. So, like, God knows what that guy's going to do. And our party cannot put a strong candidate up. So sad.
Nope. They're Democrats.
Mike,
they're just eating each other.
now let's hope. There is hope. New Hampshire is an open primary, which means that, and most of party affiliation in New Hampshire is independent, which means that they can then go and participate in the Democratic primary. We know that Yang does really well with independents, perhaps better than Democrats.
Yeah.
I remember Steve Marchand up in New Hampshire was saying, hey, we are feeling really good, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. What do you think? Okay, Ross, let's see if you can do 2 for 2, man. What's your prediction in New Hampshire?
Oh, man. Off the cuff in New Hampshire.
Do you want to look? Do you want me to show you the latest polls in New Hampshire?
Yeah, show me.
All right, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the polls. Here we go. New Hampshire. Okay, so you've got on Feb 5th, you had 2 polls. They had Sanders in the lead, then Buttigieg, and then Warren and Biden pretty much tied. Then old Klobuchar. Wow, Gabbard. Freaking Yang.
Yeah, Gabbard and Yang.
Yang is struggling. And even old Stiers. That's not. I mean, so what's your prediction? Do you think it'll map to this Boston Globe poll or the Emerson one?
I'm gonna guess in order, and it's just
okay.
a guess.
Yeah, let's just do order. Mm-hmm.
Let's say Bernie leads. That's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Bernie, Warren, Pete. I'm gonna be optimistic and say Yang.
I love it. I
Then,
love your optimism.
I have to be.
Yeah.
Then Biden, then Klobuchar, then Steyer.
Okay.
And then Gabbard.
Well, the good news is I don't have to write this down because this is live streamed and it'll be on replay. All right, Ross. Here's the Nerdstradamus prediction. Here's mine.
All right.
Nerdstradamus predicts number 1 will be Bernie Sanders. I agree with you there. I'm going to give number 2 to Mayor Momentum. I don't like it, but I will say he's going to be number 2. He's coming out strong out of Iowa. He's also, it's not a big stretch. He's already number 2 in these damn polls.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say, now here's where I'm going to take a risk, but I don't think it's a huge risk. I'm going to say number 3 is Warren. And then I'm going to say number 4 is Biden. And then I'll say number 5 is Yang. Number 6 is Kloby. And then Gabbard Steyer.
You
So
might be closer than me.
we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Well, I know, Ross, you didn't want to spend the full hour with us. So I do want to say congratulations on getting so close. That's like the silver lining, even though our man didn't. So sad. Do you think?
I was most off on him.
God damn it! I was so sure with all of that Yang Gang canvassing, like all those people going out there, and the phone banking,
and the 17-day bus tour,
and the money. I mean, I think they threw down some money for ads. Well, let's hope that primary voters look closer. Maybe if you had a continuum, you've got like Google and YouTube and Twitter over here, but then like over here you have like caucus goers, which are just this weird extreme thing, and maybe primary voters look closer to internet population.
It's possible. It's totally possible.
You know,
we'll find out in a week.
Yeah. And so, well, thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. It's been a blast.
I hope to see you again, and I'm gonna drop you from the stream for now, and then we'll see you again on a future show when we do some more predictions.
All right.
All right, later, Ross. You want to say goodbye, nerds?
Goodbye, nerds.
All right. Well, Ross was an awesome dude. I like that guy. I've never talked to him before. That's the thing about these live streams. You can you never know, but I'm always like, oh man, what do you do if you get someone who's kind of cursing but I guess I've been cursing too, so whatever. But I'm glad Ross is cool. Oh, you guys want to know something funny? In the chat room right now, do you guys remember my story about my Christmas dinner? Well, I will tell you that one of the MAGAs, MAGA 2, I see in the chat. I'm not going to highlight, but oh, he identified himself. There he is. MAGA 2. Pete's my brother. And he, I think, is mainly here because he wants to gloat and watch me suffer. And that's what MAGA people do. But Pete, we want to welcome you to the show. The Nerds for Yang channel is open to all people of all backgrounds. And the Yang campaign is about humanity first. And while you and I may disagree on many things, including Donald Trump, we can agree on one thing. And that is that Donald Trump is very entertaining and is not a dull president. Okay. So now I did want to show, I did want to look at some polls together. And because we did a little bit with good old Ross, but let's take a look at some of the other polls that are coming up. And you'll notice I'm not really going to spend a lot of time like I usually do on Google Trends or Twitter, because I think that they, at least Iowa caucus results show that internet interest doesn't translate into people showing up at a caucus. Now, it's possible that if Yang has a really good showing in New Hampshire, then maybe we'll focus more on that internet data again. But I can't help but say that, you know what, Yang was kind of number 3 or 4 and very close in Google and YouTube for Iowa internet users. And Iowa did not map to that. So let's look at, hold on. I think we should look at we did look at New Hampshire. We're going to look at New Hampshire again, and then we're going to look at Nevada and South Carolina. So let's look at New Hampshire. And let's look at we looked at the latest ones, but let's look at the trends in New Hampshire over the last 3 months. You see this blue one? That's the Sanders surge. But you notice there isn't a big Buttigieg surge. That's the purple. And actually, let's do this. Let's do a little bit of confirmation here. Let's actually look at the Iowa polls over time and see if we saw that Buttigieg surge coming. Buttigieg is the dark purple. Look at this. The poll actually. So look at this. This is where the polls are a little bit suspect. The final polls before the caucus were predicting, wow, look, they were predicting Biden would be number 2 and Buttigieg would be number 3 and Warren would be number 4. They were right that Klobuchar had a little bit of a surge, but they clearly got Biden wrong. Now, it could be my interpretation of this Iowa polling is that it's possible Biden did have 19%, the second most support, but it might have been very light support, meaning they'll answer a phone and say, yeah, okay, I'm for Biden, but they're not going to go out in the cold and spend like 2 hours in some high school gymnasium standing around in corners and, caucusing. But so like when you look at this, is this now proof that polls are BS? No, I don't think so. I think that if anything, maybe the poll that predicting the Buttigieg was on a downward trend. And let's look at that's a 6-month data. Let's look at the 30-day. Okay, 30-day, actually, it shows that Buttigieg was, actually, let's be honest. These polls were off on Buttigieg. They were right on Sanders. They were way off on Biden. And they were pretty correct on the whole Klobuchar-Yang separation. So, at any rate, for those of you who've been poo-pooing polls, I think you have some evidence. You can say, yeah, your polls are crap because it had Biden number 2. The polls were not crap on predicting Yang's placement or Klobuchar's. And they were basically the only thing the polls got wrong was the Biden one, because we know Sanders really was number 1 and Buttigieg was number 2 and Warren was number 3. So the only thing the polls got wrong was the green line. But that's a pretty big thing to get wrong, the number 2 performer. So anyway, let's look at New Hampshire. Well, we had the predictions with Ross, and let's look at the 30-day trend in New Hampshire. And the 30-day trend in New Hampshire is suggesting a very nice outcome for Sanders. It, like Iowa, has Biden number 2, and then Buttigieg number 3, and then Warren number 4, then Klobuchar, then Gabbard, then Yang. So we'll see. I'm guessing that it'll be Sanders, Buttigieg, Warren, Biden, Yang, Klobuchar. But we'll see. What about Nevada? How are we looking in Nevada? What is up with that chart? Okay, here we go. Nevada, you've got, number 1. Wow, you've got it tightening up. So the last poll was a couple weeks ago, but it has Biden number 1. I don't buy that. I think he's dropping. But then Sanders, that, and then Warren. Whoa, Steyer at 10%. then Buttigieg, then Yang at 4, ahead of Klobuchar and Gabbard. Okay, that's interesting. If we look at the latest poll, was this is very old data for Nevada. So I'm not sure we should really. How are they coming up with these averages if the last Nevada poll was January 11th? Not a heavily polled state. So who knows what's going to happen in Nevada? This data is too old. And then what about South Carolina? Let's see if there's a more recent poll in South Carolina. Okay, at least we have something that ended on Jan 29th. The Post and Courier. And you have Biden, then Sanders. Oh, Steyer. Jesus. Then Warren, then Buttigieg, then Yang, and Gabbard, and then Klobuchar. So if Biden has a crappy New Hampshire performance, which I suspect he will, I don't think he'll be in the top 3 in New Hampshire. Then, and if he's not number 1 in South Carolina, then Biden should just drop out. Surprising to see Steyer so strong. That'll be really interesting if the billionaire can get basically 3rd place in South Carolina. All right. So I think, I did want to show you guys the betting odds, and then I think I'll take some viewer questions or suggestions or comments, and then we'll wrap it up because I've got a little bit of jet lag and I'm getting a little tired. Okay, let's look at the betting odds because actually they're not that off, the betting odds. Here we go. So look at this. The gamblers are basically saying that they used to have Biden, I think, way stronger. But look, they have Bloomberg as the 2nd most likely. And then they're not that bullish on Buttigieg or Warren. And then they've got Hillary and Yang. God help us. So that's that one. And then there's another betting odds, election betting odds, I think. Yeah. Let's take a look at this one. In the last week, let's say, we've got Sanders, Bloomberg, Biden, Buttigieg, Warren, Hillary, Yang. Ooh, man, those gamblers are not loving us. So I think the biggest takeaway from these betting odds is a lot of people are looking at Bloomberg, which I had dismissed because I had assumed, well, he used to be a Republican. He did the stop and frisk. He's not even in Iowa, New Hampshire, or South Carolina. I don't think he's participating. I think he's coming in Super Tuesday. He's a billionaire. All these reasons why he may not get the nomination. But if you assume that Biden is toast, where do those moderates go? They're only going to be able to choose between Buttigieg or Klobuchar. Of course, we would love them to come to Yang. But if you're a moderate, freedom dividend may be a little too kind of out of the box for you. So would the Biden supporters be more likely to go to Buttigieg or Klobuchar than Bloomberg? Perhaps. If they're suspicious about Bloomberg's kind of party bona fides, then they may want to stay within the DNC party establishment kind of pack And then they're going to have to choose. If you went, would you see someone who is supporting Biden switch to Buttigieg? Maybe Buttigieg is kind of like a super young Biden, that a little more articulate, maybe a little bit less relatable, but it's clearly very competent. Or might they go for Klobuchar, who, no one doesn't like Klobuchar as far as I can tell. They're just not really excited by her. So anyway, that's it's about what you guys, let me ask you guys a question, and then you can answer in the comments on YouTube in the live chat. If Yang is not the nominee, who would be your second choice? And I'll answer first. I'm going to say Bloomberg is my second choice, and here's why. Many of the reasons I like Yang: data-driven, logical, even-keeled, very smart. You could say all of those things about Bloomberg. Plus, that means I don't have to support Buttigieg, who I just feel is kind of smarmy. And it means I don't have to support Klobuchar, who I don't dislike, but I just find her, I don't know. I feel like Bloomberg's more impressive in terms of what he's done. And if you're a moderate, where else are you going to go? Because basically those are your choices, right? Okay, so let's see what people think. Are saying, all right, Pop Fizzle is saying, hey, if Yang isn't the nominee, it's going to be hard to swallow the Pete or Bernie pill. But Pop Fizzle, could you consider the Bloomberg pill? High Tech Hobbies is thinking Bernie. Daniel Smith is ready to go to Steyer. I don't know, Daniel. You might be going from one long shot to an even longer shot. Although, like those South Carolina polls indicate and Nevada polls indicate, Steyer is not a long shot in those states. So Jonathan Moody is thinking Tulsi. But again, okay, that might be, you guys are clearly voting out of conviction and principle. But your second choice may be less likely than Yang. PB is saying you'll go for Bernie if Yang's part of the package, but you just wouldn't do it for Pete. Matthew is saying you're Yang or nothing. Ooh, that silencer saying Trump. Ian, no choice. Floyd is saying Tulsi, then Bernie, and then maybe Steyer. Yeah, I know. Nobody's really excited about our second choices. Oh man. Ooh, this is gonna be Bloomberg's challenge, right? If many people agree with Callie Clown, that Bloomberg is this like crooked billionaire, that'll be a problem for him. So yeah. Before we wrap up, do you guys have any questions for me that you want me to just kind of opine on or discuss? I think for me, my takeaway, let me summarize while I'm waiting for questions, if there are any. My takeaway is Iowa was a freaking disaster. There is silver lining in that he got 5% of the first vote. So don't let people tell you that he only got 1%. He got 5% of the first vote. When the people came in and they asked who they supported, 5% of them said Yang. And because of Iowa's weird rules, they were then forced to redistribute. So that's how we ended up with 1%. But it was a bit of a disaster. There's two silver linings. One, it's 5%, not 1%. The other silver lining is that if the caucus voting was not so screwed up and late, it would have been an even for Bernie and Buttigieg, and Yang would have looked even worse. We were kind of aided by the murkiness and kind of confusion in the results, so we didn't have to it's like if you lose a race, but then there's all this chaos, it makes the loss maybe a little bit less, it takes a little bit of the edge off, but it still sucks to lose. So that's one takeaway. The second takeaway is that, at least in terms of predicting caucus turnout, Google, YouTube, Twitter sucks. That's just the truth of it, which is sad because what's interesting though, those caucus results kind of match the media coverage. Let's take a look at the media coverage and see how close the media coverage tracked to the caucus results. Hold on one second. Let me pull up. Where the heck did I save that? Boom, 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 boom. Come on, I thought I had it. Give me a sec. I found it, guys. Whoops. I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Let me go to that media thing. Hold on. Here it is. Okay, view. Share screen. All right, let's look at this. Let's look at the media coverage, because I actually think the media coverage was pretty accurate. Update dashboard. Okay, so we're looking at the media coverage for basically the last 2 weeks, I think. Oh, the past month. Okay. So past month, you have Biden, Sanders, Warren, Bloomberg, Buttigieg, Klobuchar. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Like the media coverage, if we do a custom date range, when was the Iowa caucus again? Let's see. Let's do time period custom. We'll start it. I think the caucuses were on Feb 3rd. So let's look at the coverage from Jan 20 to Feb 2nd, right before the caucus. And then we'll say update dashboard. Oh, I picked 2019, but we're actually in 2020, aren't we? Sorry, hold on one second. 1/19/20. Okay, there we go. Update dashboard. It's calculating. All right. So prior to the Iowa caucus, ending on Feb 2nd, The media on CNN, MSNBC, Fox was focused on Biden, Sanders, Warren, Bloomberg, Buttigieg, Klobuchar. No, I would say the media coverage was incorrect because they covered Klobuchar almost as much as Buttigieg. And they covered Biden more than anyone. And then if you look at network news, Sanders, Biden, Bloomberg, Buttigieg, very little. Yeah, so I don't think media coverage is a good predictor either. What about online news? Biden, nah, nope. So I think the conclusion there is that it is very hard to predict caucus results, but if you had to pick one source, those polls aren't too bad. Okay, now let's see if you guys have any questions you want to talk about in the chat. Let's see, any questions? No, I don't see a lot of questions. You guys are discussing amongst yourselves, which is fine. All right, guys, I think we're gonna call it a stream. But I will do one thing with you guys before I wrap up. I do think if you haven't seen Romney's speech, it's worth watching. And let's watch it together. If you're not interested in the Romney speech, you can drop off. But I'm gonna pull it up because I thought, you know what, it was a bit of a profile in courage because that guy did not. He's not going to get a lot of high fives from fellow Republicans because of the speech he gave. But I think we should watch it because he speaks very intelligently, and let's take a look together. Share, Chromie.
The Constitution established the vehicle of impeachment that has occupied both houses of our Congress these many days. We have labored to faithfully execute our responsibilities to it. We have arrived at different judgments.
I'm going to fast forward.
Respect each other's good faith from office, to maintain that the lack of a codified and comprehensive list of all the outrageous acts that a president might conceivably taking excessive advantage of his father's name is unsavory, but also not a crime. The defense argues that the Senate should leave the impeachment decision to the voters. While that logic is appealing to our democratic instincts, it is inconsistent with the Constitution's requirement that the Senate, not the voters, try the president. Hamilton explained that the founders' decision to invest senators with this obligation rather than leave it to the voters was intended to minimize, to the extent possible, the partisan sentiments of the public at large. So the verdict is ours to render under our Constitution. The people will judge us for how well and faithfully we fulfill our duty. The grave question the Constitution tasks senators to answer is whether the president committed an act so extreme and egregious that it rises to the level of a high crime and misdemeanor. Yes, he did. The president asked a foreign government to investigate his political rival. The president withheld vital military funds from that government to press it to do so. The president delayed funds for an American ally at war with Russian invaders. The president's purpose was personal and political. Accordingly, the president is guilty of an appalling abuse of public trust. What he did was not perfect. No, it was a flagrant assault on our rights, our national security, and our fundamental values. Corrupting an election to keep oneself in office is perhaps the most abusive and destructive violation of one's oath of office that I can imagine. In the last several weeks, and texts, many demanded in their words that I stand with the team. I can assure you that that thought has been very much on my mind. You see, I support a great deal of what the president has done. I voted with him 80% of the time. I promised before God to apply impartial justice required that I put my personal feelings and political biases aside. Were I to ignore the evidence that has been presented and disregard what I believe my oath and the Constitution demands of me for the sake of a partisan end, it would, I fear, expose my character to history's rebuke and the censure of my own conscience. I'm aware that there are people in my party and in my state who will strenuously disapprove of my decision, and in some quarters, I will be vehemently denounced. I'm sure to hear abuse from the president and his supporters. Does anyone seriously believe that I would consent to these consequences other than from an inescapable conviction that my oath before God demanded it of me? I sought to hear testimony from John Bolton, not only because I believed he could add context to the charges, but also because I hoped that what he might say could raise reasonable doubt and thus remove from me the awful obligation to vote for impeachment. Like each member of this deliberative body, I love our country. I believe that our Constitution was inspired by Providence. I'm convinced that freedom itself is dependent on the strength and vitality of our national character. As it is with each senator, my vote is an act of conviction. We've come to different conclusions, fellow.
All right. I won't play the whole video, but I got to tell you, the beginning of his speech, he also very articulately basically dismembers the White House arguments. And in some ways, he makes a better case than any of the House managers did. And, you know, look, Romney's imperfect. I know he said a lot of insensitive things about, you know, the 47% and all that stuff. But he reminds me of the traditional Republicans who used to be the party of, you know, business-like thinking, very buttoned up and cogent. And, you know, now it's like, oh, it's nostalgic watching a old school Republican talk like that, because now we have Trump and he obviously goes a different path. So at any rate, kudos to Romney. I will say that my plan B president pick will have to be Bloomberg. I actually think a Bloomberg-Trump general election could be really good. And I'm a little worried, like, who the heck can beat Trump? If we still have a strong economy in terms of traditional economic terms, unemployment and GDP, let's just assume that many voters will equate GDP and stock and unemployment with good times, even if I know we all know better that it's not a full reflection of the state of the country and the well-being of the people. But if those traditional economic indicators are strong, and then you've got the Trump base who's very fired up and wants to show those Democrats that, you know, you can't push their candidate around. And then you've got just the red meat he'll throw out around guns, around abortion, around immigration, around terrorism. That's a lot to fire up a Trump crowd. You know, do we really think Mayor Pete's going to be able to get more support than Hillary did as the first woman candidate? Maybe because Hillary was such a flawed candidate, and because now we all know that Trump is such a flawed president, maybe Pete could do better than Hillary. And let's remember that Trump didn't win by that much the first time, but I actually think he's a stronger opponent now than he was the first time around. The first time around, he was kind of reality TV star. He's president, presiding over a strong-ish economy, presiding over low technical unemployment rates, with a lot of foreign kind of enemies he can point at, that he's sticking up for America first. I mean, yeah, he's probably a stronger candidate now than he was before. We need to bring someone that's going to be able to go to a heavyweight fight. Klobuchar? No. I just don't see her coming up to task. Yang, of course, but if the Democratic Party doesn't nominate him, he's not going to be in the general. Bernie could be interesting, but they will definitely paint him as a socialist for sure. But I think I like Bernie. He's scrappy. He's a good fighter. Warren, I think, would be very similar to a Hillary outcome. And then Pete. So if you had to pick Pete or Bernie to go after Trump, who would you want? Who would you think has a better chance of winning? Actually, I think we don't need to speculate. I think there are some head-to-head polls that we can look at. Hold on a second. Let's see. Head-to-head polls, Trump. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Let's look at the data. Let's look at the data. Let's look at the data. Where was it? I think it's here. Get some sleep. His nerd is tired. Okay. Head to head, you have Biden on Feb 2. Okay, so this is before the Iowa results. You have Biden beating Trump, Sanders, Warren beating Trump. Ooh, Trump and Buttigieg kind of tied. And then Jan 31, Biden a little bit ahead of Trump. Sanders, they're all pretty much tied with Trump. I thought I saw a Yang Trump head to head. Let's see if I can find that. Maybe it was Emerson? When is this one? Feb 6. So we got Emerson is saying in New Hampshire. Okay, we saw this, but did they do a head-to-head? No, I don't see any head-to-head. Let's see. What? Bet Online's head-to-head wagers. Look at this. I don't know how reliable this is, but this is one of those gambling odds where Trump is favored over Sanders, over Biden, more over Warren. So out of Warren, Biden, and Sanders, the gamblers think Sanders has the best chance, but still loses to Trump. And they think if Trump had to go up against Yang, they give the odds to Yang. Now, I think part of that is because the way this is written, the only way this bet would pay out is that if Yang became the nominee. And so built into this is obviously Yang becoming the nominee would be a huge deal. So that guy would have crazy probably why you would see him as likely to beat Trump, because he did the very the nomination. But it is kind of cool. Let me see if I can find any other head-to-heads before we wrap up. Let's see. I don't think general election polls. Hold on, guys. Getting a bunch of ads for Buttigieg. Yeah, no, the head-to-heads I have, I'll share it again. They're all pre-Iowa. And I think the fact that Biden got his ass kicked in Iowa has basically makes him a way weaker one. But before Iowa, you had Biden by 6, Sanders by 4, Warren by 3. I mean, this is very slim margins. I mean, by 6 is pretty good, but then here, Biden by 1, and then Trump over Warren, Sanders, Buttigieg. Oh, they don't have any. Bloomberg, Trump. Bloomberg's only up by 3. And then here, Bloomberg's only up by 1. Wow. You know what, guys? If these polls are as good as they were for Iowa, then this general election is going to be so freaking close that we need to put up the best candidate we can, because freaking Trump is not going to be a pushover in the general. At any rate, so I think that will be enough of the discussion. Hopefully, we will do a much more interesting live stream after New Hampshire. And in the meantime, guys, look, I hear you. Iowa didn't turn out the way we wanted it to. But remember this. There's only going to be one election. There's only going to be one Democratic nominee for 2020. And there's only going to be one New Hampshire primary in this cycle. So we have to leave it all on the field. Because if we don't, if you believe the rules that I just went over, it means Donald Trump will probably be president again. And I'm very uncomfortable with a unstable, erratic person who doesn't like to read, doesn't like math, seems to lie a lot, has no problem working with foreign countries to advance his personal interests. Like, I'm very uncomfortable with that, getting a second term of that. And so even though Yang is didn't give us the jolt of energy we wanted from Iowa, I still think he's the best candidate, and I still love America, and I feel like America needs someone like Yang. And if we have, here's a path. If we come in, what were we saying? We were saying it would be Bernie for New Hampshire. We were saying it would be Bernie, Buttigieg, Warren, and then let's say we came in 4th. So, oh no. Yeah, well, it would have to be ahead of Biden. Maybe we're Biden, then us. No, I think we would want to be 4th. Let's say we're 4th, maybe 5th, and then South Carolina. Maybe we sort of break through, especially with the African-American vote. And they, the voters in South Carolina realize that the freedom dividend would probably be one of the biggest, highest impact things that will have come to the African American community from any leader for probably in history in terms of economic impact. So we could have a good showing in South Carolina. Maybe we come in third or fourth there. And then you got Super Tuesday. Does it get us a slingshot to the nomination? Improbable. Does it give us major clout in the convention and with the eventual nominee? Yes. Does that result in maybe secretary or cabinet member or VP Yang? Maybe. Would that then set us up for President Yang in 2024? Maybe. So I would say we have to keep fighting if we believe that he's, Yang was just as smart, just as innovative, just as positive, just as focused on problem solving today as he was before Iowa. So the only thing that changed was that the fine people of Iowa went with Mayor Pete in larger numbers than we expected, and they went with Klobuchar, who, as a reminder, was on a bordering state. I know I sound like I'm making excuses, but those were factors. And New Hampshire is not going to be easy for us either. We've got Warren and Bernie in neighboring states, and you got a Buttigieg with momentum. You got Biden who's going to fight for his life. You've got Klobuchar who thinks she's on the edge of getting her escape velocity. So it's going to be a dogfight in New Hampshire. But we do have going for us that it's an open primary with a lot of independents, which is what we know Yang does really well. In fact, speaking of that, let's see if I can very quickly, before I close out, go into one of the deep dives of one of these polls. Democratic primary poll. Yeah, Economist YouGov. Those are usually pretty good. Hold on a second. Oh yeah. All right. We're gonna do one last little dive into the data, and then I really do need to go because I'm getting kind of tired. I have some jet lag, and I got a big day tomorrow. Okay, let's go here. This is from the Economist YouGov poll that ended on Feb 4. And let's skip to favorability for Yang. Where is his favorability? For very favorable, more males than female. In terms of don't know, only 38% of females have no opinion of Yang, whereas only 27% of males have no opinion. So he's sort of an awareness challenge with females. He's 45% of 30 to 44-year-olds have no opinion of Yang. So Yang's not a household name, but if you look at favorability for blacks, he has 17% of black voters have a favorable opinion of him. Now, if you did the same thing for Buttigieg, let's see. So remember, Yang is 17% favorable from black voters. Let's go to Buttigieg. Hold on. Go to Buttigieg. Sorry, I opened in another tab. For Buttigieg, his favorability is 10% from black voters. So Yang's almost 70% more black favorability than Buttigieg. So that's, encouraging. But so in South Carolina, what is, let's look at Biden's favorability for blacks. Yeah, 32%. So, and then Hispanics, he's got 15. Biden has 15. And then let's see what Yang has with Hispanics. Ooh, 7. What about Buttigieg for Hispanics? Remember, Yang has 7. Favorability, Buttigieg. Nah. Buttigieg has 9. So we're stronger with the black vote in South Carolina. So that's encouraging. We may have a better showing in South Carolina than Buttigieg, maybe, if that black vote really comes out for Yang. What else can we see about Yang's support from? So we definitely need to work on female voters. And then in terms of this top row is very favorable. So he does well with 18 to 29. He actually has moved up a little bit with the 65 and older crowd, although only 10% are very favorable. 45 to 64, similar to the 65 plus crowd. And then in terms of party ID for independents, 10% favorable and 18% from Democrats, very favorable for Yang. So let's remember that. Yang has 18, 10, 5 in terms of party ID favorability. 18, 10, 5. Let's go to Buttigieg. Buttigieg. Party ID. We were 18, 10, 5. So he's got us on the Dems. We're about the same with independents. And then we have a little more on Republicans because he's 25, 9, 3. He's formidable. So my takeaway from those crosstabs is we have a little bit of an advantage with black voters, a little bit of advantage with Republican voters over Buttigieg. But I think the biggest takeaway is that awareness of Yang is still pretty low. It's a very large chunk who have no opinion of him whatsoever. This is where if we had the Steyer money and we're running ads like crazy, if Steyer can get to 18% in South Carolina on what, like just that he's a hedge fund guy and he bought all these ads, you got to believe if Yang had that kind of campaign resources with his policies and him as a candidate, if Steyer could get to 18, like, shoot, we probably could have gotten to 35 easily. At any rate, I think I'm going to sign off now. But I just wanted to say, let's keep fighting. He's still the best candidate with the best policies and with the best solutions for America. It's just that Iowa didn't see it that way. Let's hope New Hampshire does. And thanks to everybody who volunteered for the Iowa efforts. Even though we, didn't get the results we wanted, I just want to personally say I totally have so much respect for everybody who worked so hard. And we always knew this wouldn't come easy. So let's keep fighting, because if Andrew's out there fighting, then we can fight too. So goodbye, nerds, and fingers crossed for New Hampshire.